It's the end of the world as we know it, and I feel fine. Actually, no, I don't. My head is killing me. It's June 27th, 2020, and today is the apocalypse. At least, of course, if you're watching the Netflix series Dark. The first 2 seasons were complex and deep and confusing and sometimes really hard to figure out what's going on. And now we have part 3, or season 3, or cycle 3. It's the final one. Does the show wrap up in a way that makes sense and satisfies? Just to set your mind at ease, this is going to be a spoiler-free review, but there will be some minor spoilers for the first 2 seasons. I'm also going to do a spoiler talk explanation video on season 3 and maybe the entire series very shortly. But for this one, I'm not going to ruin the fun. And also, let's be good citizens in the comments and not share any spoilers there either. Throughout this, I'll probably interchange between season, part, or cycle. Just know that they all mean the exact same thing. Cycle 3 picks up right where the second left off, and we have Marta, or Martha, and I'm going to interchange those a bunch too. She comes in to where Jonas is, where the other Marta had just been shot. And when Jonas questions her, she says the question isn't what time, it's what world. And so we know right off the bat that the whole doors have been blown off what we know to be true. So not only now are we going to be jumping back and forth between times, but there also could be another dimension or another space or whatever that happens to be, that it's not just linear now, but it's gotten it in a whole different way as well. Oh, that makes it way more complex. So let me tell you this right off the bat. If you're watching this season and you get through an episode or 2 or 3 and you're just like, oh gosh, I don't really know what's going on. I feel very confused. I don't think they're answering a lot of the questions. You're not alone. I mean, we paused several times, not only to just discuss theories of where we thought the show was going, what we thought certain things meant, but also to be like, well, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense. That's a huge hole. And how can they do that? But then we started back up and we learned that our theories may have been wrong and that the holes that we thought were there or the mistakes that we thought they were making, they weren't making. They were wrapping them up. They were answering them. They were doing all of that. So we just needed to have the patience to watch through. And so I'm just encouraging you also, if you're feeling like just, oh my gosh, this is a tough thing to watch, or I'm not getting it, or I'm just going to bail on it, give it a chance. The casting throughout the entire show has been spectacular. I'm really amazed at how well they have been able to capture actors at different ages to play the characters at different ages and how much they look alike. I mean, they truly look like the characters that they're playing. So you could have young Jonas and middle-aged Jonas, and they do resemble each other. And that's crazy. And that goes across the gamut, how closely they were able to match actors. This final season is 8 episodes long. Each of the episodes are right at about an hour, maybe a little bit more. And it did not drag one bit. It was so compelling and emotional to watch all of these characters that I've grown to love and hate, and just watch them interact and to see what their choices and their actions, where that leads them. There's a huge amount of drama and intrigue, and that's not a surprise because that's how the first 2 parts were. I love, though, in this season that there are moments, and sometimes they're very small and sometimes they're larger, but they fill in gaps of information or little bits here and there that we may not have known were missing, or that were just kind of an aside or something that was mentioned in the first 2 cycles that now we're getting the answers to. It's almost like hearing or seeing an Easter egg at certain points, because you'd see something happen or you'd know what's about to happen just based on the setup, and you're like, oh my gosh, that's from this in that season, and oh! I mean, I just love that they're rewarding us for paying such close attention as we're watching the show. Now, in this final cycle, some of the characters have taken very minor parts where they have gone way to the background. So we only have a handful or so that are really going up front because they are carrying the crux of the story. And really, they're the ones now who are telling us the narrative, they're showing it to us, and most importantly, they're explaining it. Because Marta now tells us that we're not only dealing with different times, but different worlds as well, the show can really play with that a lot. And in that first episode of Cycle 3, bizarre, like hurt my head, even though I completely understand what I'm watching, but it's just the way that they filmed it, the way that they chose to illustrate certain things is outstanding and subtle and yet very overt all at the same time. I love how the show plays with symmetry, and not only with the story, but the cinematography as well. I mean, we have so many following shots where we have the characters centered, or, and the camera's behind them, or we have that very close up of their face where, I think I can do it, maybe the camera will continue to focus, where you've got them up like this and they're just looking into the camera. And it's so it draws me in so much with all of the shot choices that they use. And then they also mirror a lot, which I absolutely love. And, it's no different from the previous 2 seasons where we have split screens going on to see something happening, the same actions maybe, but in different times. Also, in this season especially, pay attention to the characters' facial features. It is outstanding to see what they do to give you clues as to where they are. I love how they introduce a new way for us to tell where we're at in the space-time continuum. They do this zooming effect with a whoosh sound. That lets us know that we have now moved places. I mean, before we just had a time stamp on the screen, and they still do that, and because that really helps us keep track of what time we're in, especially when you can't necessarily tell by the dress right away when you're just coming out of the cave or you're just seeing a forest. It's not always immediately how you can judge where you're at. Gotta say, this season plays a ton with time. They are not afraid to jump around like House of Pain. It is insane at especially 1 or 2 of the episodes in particular, where, whoa, we are on a roller coaster of time. And it's easy to follow, but you gotta pay attention and you gotta keep up. There's 1 or 2 small portions where I think I need to watch it again because I may have missed something, or at least I feel like I missed something because we have a character, but I don't exactly know why that specific character is there doing what they're doing. I mean, I know who the character is, I know why they're in the story on the whole, but why they're called to this certain position and in this certain time is a little vague to me. So that one kind of left me with a question mark, and that's pretty much really the only thing in the entire series that was kind of like a head scratcher once the show concluded. Soundtrack in this is great because the song choices that they use really help to set the mood and the tone. And I also like how they do the color palettes in this as well, that it's mostly drab, and that really mirrors the setting and the whole feeling of what we've got going on. But then they contrast it with some vivid, sharp colors. And that difference in the settings, it's so good to see. I was super hyped going into the season, and I was failing miserably at managing my own expectations. For me, the first 2 seasons made this show the best television show ever created. I know that that's a huge claim because there are a lot of gems out there. And so I was really nervous too. And I mean, my expectations are way off the charts. I mean, way past 11. And I was still afraid though that they were going to fumble it, that they were just going to screw up the story, that maybe they were going to rush it. Maybe they were going to try to pack too much in. Maybe they're just going to leave it on an ultimate cliffhanger where I feel very unsatisfied. Or maybe they're going to leave it up to me for my own interpretation of, well, I think this is what's going on. And in this type of show, I don't want it left up to my own interpretation. Now, maybe you feel differently on that, but I like in this one that we do get a concrete answer. All that being said, the season was totally satisfying and will probably make you tear up because it's so emotional. I mean, they really do a good job of drawing us in with the drama, with the conflict, with the whole story and character arcs, really coming to a good, satisfying climax that will tug at your heart. Now, is it a little predictable? Well, it might be, but that's also because our characters tell us what's about to happen. I mean, they set it up for us because this is what has to happen. So they literally lay it out for us. So predictable, sure, okay, but as a negative, absolutely not. There's a part almost at the very end where I laughed out loud because of a subtle in-joke that's been going on since the very beginning. I really loved how they chose to handle it. After seeing this final part, I can confidently say that Dark is the greatest television show ever created. And like I said, I know there's some gems out there that are wonderfully acted and really well put together, and this one can kill them all. I will put it up against anything, and there are some toughies out there to beat, and the battle will be hard, but Dark will still come out on top. I think I'm going to wrap it up here because the more I keep talking, the more I want to talk about the story and the intricacies in it. And that would just spoil it and ruin your fun as you watch the show. So I'm going to end here. There is a bunch of sex and nudity, a lot of profanity and violence. Now, because it's my show and I get to break all my rules, I'm going to give Dark 10 out of 5 couches. Are you a fan of the show? Do you have a favorite character? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.